All right, Mike Bond here with former interim UFC lightweight champ Dustin Poirier. Dustin, how are you doing today, man?
Doing good, brother. How about you?
I'm pretty good, just trying to survive here, man. You're in Lafayette right now, right?
Yeah, Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yeah. How I know you had been in Florida at ATT for a little while there. How long ago did you end up coming back home? As this whole coronavirus pandemic was going down.
I Let me see what happened. I I spent about 2 months at the beginning of the year at American Top Team and came home for a week. Was going to come home to Louisiana for a week to reset before I started my training camp. The plan was to come home. I went up with my buddy to Connecticut to the Bellator event. He was supposed to fight, and I was going to corner him there and then fly with them from Connecticut back to Florida. And shit kind of hit the fan whenever we were out there in Connecticut, and so I canceled the flights and just came back home to my family.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about there. So you're out there with Sabah Humasi, who was supposed to fight Paul Daly on that Bellator 241 card. So you were obviously there with him as all that was going down. What was like your perspective and being around him as, on fight day and maybe even leading up to that when, they had changed the event to behind closed doors and everything, and then ultimately, postponed it, canceled it. What was it like being around, your teammate who was in the midst of all that?
I helped him a lot in his training camp, so it was kind of I was excited to be there and excited to see him. Against that caliber of opponent, it was going to be a great win for him. But it was kind of day by day out there. We didn't know what was going on. We thought the event was going to be done with no crowd, and it was kind of just watching everybody's emotions because he had people flying in the day before, and they now they're not going to be able to watch the fight, and then it got canceled the day of. It was crazy, man. First, I've been to a lot of fights and cornered a lot of guys, and I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, and obviously you being a guy who's been, a Zuffa fighter for the majority of your career, WEC and now UFC, you're there at a Bellator show. Just seeing how they handled it, like in terms of, I know they paid pretty much everyone who was, there, whether it was staff to fighters and stuff. Just seeing how they treated them as like a UFC guy. What did you make of all that side of it?
Great. It was very professional. Everybody showed up. I believe, I don't know all the details, but I believe everybody who made weight got their purses.
Mhm.
So that's incredible, man. Because these guys spent money in their training camp. They spent money on recovery. They spent money on probably the best groceries and foods that they can get. Whenever you're in training camp, you want everything to be the best, and you want to feel your best, so you try to do everything right. You're not scared to spend a little bit extra money because you think you have more coming in on fight day. So it's good to see these guys get paid.
No doubt. And as we switch the UFC side of things, obviously, a pretty crazy week with everything that's happened with UFC 249 and beyond. We could start with 249, though, since obviously you are a top lightweight and this impacts your division and everything. When you saw Habib is out, Gaethje comes in, fighting Tony Ferguson, interim belt, what did you just make of everything that kind of unfolded with that whole main event scenario and where we stand now?
You know, I just can't believe the fight's not happening again with Tony and Khabib. But I mean, as a fight fan, just taking myself out of the mix as a fight fan, I'm excited for this fight. You got two guys who are both on a suicide mission, so the fans are going to really enjoy it. Me personally, I think uh, Justin wins this fight, man. I just have a feeling he's going to pull it off. Uh, but yeah, it kind of, I was messaging Dana, telling him that I can step in and fight whoever next weekend if they needed me. That I would love to. I'm still number two in the world, but they went the way they went, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, were you given any reason why they went with Gaethje over you? I mean, obviously you have the win over him, but right now he's on a 3-fight winning streak. You're coming off the loss to Habib. Do you think that's kind of ultimately what it was? Just kind of the fact that he's on the streak right now?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. I think me coming off a loss to Khabib, um, it's just a new contender, a guy on a streak, an exciting fighter. That's just what happens. This is business, man.
Yeah, so you're cool with it though. I mean, obviously you would have liked to fight, but you understand the whole situation more or less.
I understand. Like I said, it's a business. I don't. I can't twist their arm and make them do things. Of course, I would love to be in there across from Tony. But it's all good, man. I just got to fight and win. Everything else will happen. It will resolve itself.
No doubt. And I know you had tweeted yesterday, I was pretty simple, Justin wins, and you kind of just reiterated it there. But why do you think he beats Tony Ferguson in this fight? How do you think it unfolds in him winning?
I think he's gonna knock Tony out, man. I think he's both guys on the technical side of it don't have the most crisp technique when it comes to kickboxing, but they're both very damaging fighters. They both uh, go in with reckless abandonment of their own, you know, self to land the big shots. So I just think Gaethje's gonna land something on the inside and hurt Tony, man. I really do. We've seen Tony be hurt a few times. I just think Gaethje's gonna be the one to finish him.
Yeah. Do you feel bad for Tony at all if that's the situation? I mean, such a long time, 12-fight winning streak to get here. Was supposed to fight Habib. It's fallen apart so many times now. Like, if he ultimately loses at 36 years old, he may not get back to that fight again. Would any part of you feel bad for him in that scenario?
Nah, I mean, that's fighting,
Yeah.
That's fighting.
You take the risk, right?
You take the risk, we'll see what happens. But that's just fighting, man. It's so unpredictable. And at a time like this, it's just madness, honestly. It's just madness.
Yeah. If you had got the call, what would you have done to really prepare? I mean, obviously, you were thinking you were going to fight in May. We can get to that in a bit. And you were kind of already in camp, and I know you've been working out and stuff. But say they had given you that call and said, yes, you're in against Tony on like 15 days ish notice. What do you do in those 15 days to prepare for someone like that who has really had a full training camp knowing for this date?
For me, it would have been more about getting my body physically ready to perform in that short of time. Also, making the weight. I would be 100% focused on getting as low as I can to make the cut as easy as I possibly could, because I cut a good bit of weight.
Yeah. And what do you just make of how they're putting this event on? They're saying right now the next 2 months are probably going to be at this Tachi Palace in Lemoore, California. It seems like it's not going to be officially overseen by the California State Athletic Commission. They're wanting to be hands off. It's probably going to be self-regulated. I know all the fighters want to fight. I know you want to fight and everything, but with all this COVID-19 stuff going on, is this a mistake by the UFC to so aggressively try to put on these fights, or, are you supporting what they're doing here?
That's a tough call, because we don't know. Of course, guys want to fight. The show goes on. People stuck at home want to have something to watch, a live sporting event. But at the same time, we don't know the ripple effect of this. We don't know if somebody on the travel side gets sick and brings it back home. That's all the things we don't know. And honestly, I don't know the stats and details good enough to know about how risky flying is right now. And I don't know. I just know what the news tells me. And I've been in the house so many days, man. I try to keep that off so I don't get the precious listening to these guys talk craziness. I don't know what's going on.
For sure. So I guess, like, from your perspective, we don't know how this is going to evolve in the next few weeks. But if you had been on 249, like, what would be the weighing the risk and the reward? Obviously, we know you have a young daughter at home and stuff, like, kind of going out there and risking it. Dana White's saying they're going to go above and beyond the safety precautions. We don't know exactly what that means, but it seems like they're pretty steadfast in taking, every possible measure. What things were you risking? Obviously, the chance to get the interim title back, set up another undisputed opportunity. The fighting side of it, it's all there. But I guess the health, the personal side, the UFC infrastructure, like, what were you weighing there?
I didn't even think that far into it because I didn't have an official offer, or I don't think they were entertaining me. They already had chosen Justin Gaethje to fight Tony, so I didn't have to get that deep into thought about it. I was just saying I would do it if they would have accepted it. Then for sure, all these other things would have came into my mind. But this company is the best in the world at putting on fights, and I believe that as safe as you can do it, they will. They're a big time organization, have a lot of good people behind them, a lot of smart people behind them. I think they're going to do their best and put these fights on.
Yeah, fair play. And going back to you, obviously before all this craziness came into play, all signs were pointing to you fighting Dan Hooker May 16th in San Diego. We know the fight's definitely not happening in San Diego, just because with all this going on, maybe this happens at the Tachi Palace, or if we want to get into Dana White's Fight Island or whatever, what's going on there. But just give us the update. I know you tweeted out last night, which was Tuesday, saying that or Wednesday, that they were could be fighting still May 16th, and that's what you're preparing for. What do you know at the moment?
I've kind of been in limbo these last few weeks. Obviously, I didn't go to Florida from Connecticut and start training camp, so I never really started a camp. Now that Louisiana has some pretty high cases here, we've been mandatory quarantined if you cross state line from Louisiana to Florida for 2 weeks. So if I'm fighting May, going there and being quarantined for 2 weeks and then training for a week or two, it's just not worth it. So I'm staying here in Louisiana. I'm running my own camp at my own gym. I have a gym here, a private gym, and I have a couple training partners here in Lafayette, Louisiana, who come meet me and push me, and I'm just gonna stay ready and prepare that way, and we'll see. But what I'm hearing from the UFC is that if they pull off April 18th and it happens, then I'm fighting. Not on that card, but that if they pull off a successful event, then I will be fighting in May, most likely.
Okay, and it would likely be at the Tachi Palace, or the venue they have located for 249.
I believe we haven't got that far. I'm not sure yet. I haven't signed or got an official contract. This has all just been talking, but I believe that they only have that venue for 2 months, and my fight would be.
It's about 5 weeks away, right? May 16th.
Yeah. So I might be on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, so I mean, tell me, and I imagine if there was going to be Dan Hooker, that would most likely have to be the case regardless, because I can't imagine he gets in the States by May. You'd maybe have to look at a different opponent if they want stateside. But yes, you mentioned Gilligan's Island, Dana White's Island, Fight Island, whatever we're calling it. When you hear Dana come out and say in that interview, and this is obviously well before you knew that maybe you could be fighting out there, and he says, "I'm trying to secure a private island for fights," like what goes through your head?
It's insane, man. I was blown away. It's like Mortal Kombat. The show goes on, man. Business must go on. I honestly think, this fight with Hooker, if it does happen, could be on that island. But we'll see how things are in May. 5 weeks is a long time, so things might be slowing down a little bit. Other places, other venues might be opening back up. International travel might be allowed by then. We'll see. It's still a day-by-day thing here.
Yeah, what would you rather do? I mean, I know you're a guy, you went out to Abu Dhabi and fought Habib there. You fought all over the world. You fought in guys' backyards, Gaethje, stuff like that. Would you rather, I guess, just minimize the travel time? We don't know where this supposed island in the world would even be, but do you like the concept of like doing something kind of crazy like that? Or would you rather just, fly a few hours to California and, make it as simple as possible?
Yeah, I'd rather as simple as possible. I'd much rather fly to California, to the Tachi Palace Arena, or anywhere in the States for that. But no telling how far this island is. It is exciting, man. It's exciting to be at this, to have something like this, an opportunity in my career where I can tell my grandchildren and my daughter that I flew. One day I can tell them that I flew onto an island where I didn't know where I was going to fight somebody. It's just crazy.
Yeah, would that be the top story? I mean, you got the Fightful poster behind you. I know you fought some crazy spots early in the day, and we mentioned Abu Dhabi, but would a private island, God knows where, would that top the list?
Yeah, that's insane, man. Especially if what Dana said happens, where we don't really know a whole lot about where we're going. That seems crazy, dude. From rodeo arenas in Fightville to private islands. There's no telling where we're going next.
No doubt. Get to the actual fight. I mean, assuming you do fight Dan Hooker, we had talked multiple times in recent months. You wanted for the next fight something that excites you, all that kind of stuff. Just tell me what you think about this matchup, assuming that does go down with Hooker. Obviously, he's coming off a very good fight, one of the best fights of the year so far with Paul Felder.
I think he's a tough guy. He's on a win streak right now. He's been in the UFC a while. He has a decent amount of experience, and yeah, he's on a good win streak. He just won his first main event in the UFC. Stuck it out and showed grit in a 5-round fight, like you said. One of the best fights this year so far. So I think the fans are in for a good matchup stylistically. He goes in there and fights hard, so that's what's going to happen. It's a fun fight for the fans, and it's an exciting fight for me because I think my style matches up well with his, and I think we're going to put on an entertaining fight. And I want to go out there and make a statement, prove that I am the best, and I want another shot at gold, man.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying coming off the Felder fight with him in particular, like, oh, Felder was able to work some pretty good boxing. Like, just imagine what Dustin will do to him. That's kind of been what I've seen a lot of talk online about. When you look at kind of the matchup, I know you feel your boxing matches up really well against pretty much anyone, but in this fight in particular, is that somewhere you could really see, that part of your skill set thriving?
Of course, anybody who's going to stay in the middle of the octagon and exchange with me, I think I'm going to do well with. But this guy's throwing a lot of kicks, very dangerous knees. We haven't been talking about his jiu-jitsu because he's been knocking guys out and stuff, but I think he has underrated jiu-jitsu. He's finished a lot of people earlier in his career, and that's it. I think he's a very well-rounded fighter, but just because he fought Paul that way doesn't mean he's going to fight me that way. So we'll see. I'm just worried about, not worried, I'm just focusing on being as crisp as I can, training the best that I can since I can't go to American Top Team, getting the best work that I can in Louisiana, and being healthy and ready to go for May 16th if it happens.
Yeah. And where do you think the winner of this fight fits into this lightweight scene? I mean, obviously, Khabib and Tony, we were hoping that would give us some much needed, long awaited clarity. But now there's going to be an interim belt in play. Khabib potentially fights the winner of that in September. Conor McGregor is still out there, too. Who knows where he fits into the whole thing at any time. Where does the winner of this kind of slide into that whole scene?
The winner of this fight, I think, is next in line or a fight away. Has to be.
Yeah, do you think the interim belt in this situation was like a fine call for them? I mean, between the time Khabib fought Conor and there was an interim belt there, and it was actually a longer break than he's going to have here between these two fights. So do you think, them doing an interim belt here, are you cool with that, especially as someone who's kind of been in that situation before?
Oh, man. That's a tough question to answer because I feel like Khabib fought in September. It's not that long. Well, if he's out until the following September, then yeah, if he doesn't defend his belt in a year, then I guess they do need an interim belt or something. You got these guys, the contenders are just piling up at the top of the lightweight division, and at least with the interim belt, we know whoever wins that gets a definite next title shot, and that's a little bit more clarity for the division. But I want it all, man. I want to be back in there. I want to be the world champion.
For sure. And I
Yeah,
have
man.
to ask, since you kind of tweeted out, like right after this interim title fight news, you said me and Conor at 170 then. Is that somewhere, obviously you're focused on Hooker, but somewhere that comes in the possibility, something you think could maybe happen?
I think it could happen. I thought Gaethje and Conor were going to end up fighting,
Mm-hmm.
and now that Gaethje's fighting Tony for the interim belt, and he's going to be fighting Khabib next, that leaves Conor out. And if he wants to fight, there's interesting fights. Like I think I'm a good fight, a good matchup, an exciting fight for him to come back to. But we'll see, man. We'll see. I don't have a contract for Dan. I don't have anything yet. I'm just staying busy, staying in shape, working. And I think my next fight, we're trying to get the Hooker fight at 170 as well.
Oh, really? Just because the weight cut could be too tough for these next 5 weeks or so, especially with such limited restrictions?
Yeah, that's the thing. When I'm at American Top Team, I'm having a strength and conditioning schedule. I'm having a certain schedule for my wrestling practices, my kickboxing practices. Here, I'm just putting stuff together week by week as we go. And for me to cut down to 155, it takes a lot. And it's not like I've been in camp. I've just been staying in shape and drilling and having fun training. So I feel like why drain my body down and potentially weaken my immune system if I'm going to be traveling to an island. I just want to be healthy. So if I had 8 weeks so to do a full camp, 155, no problem. But on this kind of notice and with what's going on, I think it's safe to be healthy, man.
Yeah. So I guess you said you haven't seen a contract, but you think that's something UFC would be receptive to under these circumstances?
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know your guess is as good as mine, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with 249 if, people end up missing weight and how they end up handling that, if, the fines are the same or if they give them some additional leeway.
Right. Hold on one second. Yeah, I can't be the only one, dude. It's got to be everybody is not in a normal training schedule. It doesn't have the same amount of training partners that they usually have. The access to facilities and equipment it's just a lot. It takes a lot, goes into a camp for a lot of people who cut weight. It's a systematically week by week schedule that I have to be on, and I haven't been on that. Everything's been kind of on tilt. So I just, like I said, putting stuff together myself, running my miles, training. But I'm here in Louisiana training at my own gym, and I just think it's the healthiest way to go for the people who do cut weight, cut a lot.
For sure. Hopefully they get that flexibility. And I guess just last thing before I let you go, you're of course wearing your Good Fight Foundation shirt. Can you just give us an update on how things are standing there? I know you like to do a goal before every fight. I know it's probably particularly difficult to lock something down right now with everything that's going on. But can you just give an update on that side of things, and if there is potentially anything discussed for around the time of your next fight?
Yeah, we haven't started discussing what we're going to do for the next fight, but right now, as of what's going on, we're starting to talk about giving back to the people on the front lines in the hospitals, the nurses, the doctors. There's 3 major hospitals here in Lafayette, Louisiana, and we're starting to put together a plan to maybe feed every employee, all the doctors, nurses at every hospital. So it'll be a big catering thing. I got a buddy who owns a couple restaurants and has the equipment and the people to push out that volume of food. So we're kind of thinking about locking down a day in the upcoming week and doing hundreds and hundreds of meals for everybody working at these hospitals in Lafayette, Louisiana.
Legend. Well, Dustin Poirier always doing good for the people, always doing good for us here at MMA Junkie, giving us some of his time, man. Really appreciate you, and we hope to see you in there May 16th. But of course, safety first, so we will see what happens.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.